from the warm Copenhagen. Welcome to the webinar Hydrogen and Carbon Capture, Facilitating Green Hydrogen Production and Export, hosted by Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency and broadcasting from the UN City. My name is Aris, I'm working as a project officer at the Copenhagen Center, and I will be the moderator for today's webinar. A couple of things before we move to the main content of our webinar. This webinar is going to be about 45 minutes long, including time for Q&A at the end. In case you cannot stay until the end or want to get back to our presentations, all the materials and the recording of the whole webinar will be available online in a few days on the Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System. And we have many other webinars and information there. Have a look, I'll give more information in a few minutes. A few things about the Copenhagen Center. The Center conducts research and advisory activities in the field of energy efficiency and serves as Energy Efficiency Hub for the Sustainable Energy for All initiative. The Center has an established network of global, regional, and national partners with a broad range of stakeholders to help accelerate the implementation of energy efficiency activities. On a regular basis, the Copenhagen Center on Energy Efficiency is conducting webinars. All materials, including recordings and presentations from previous webinars, can be found on Copenhagen Center's Knowledge Management System under the e-learning section. The material of today's webinar will be uploaded shortly, but until then you can check one of the many webinars on various topics that have been published. Finally, I would like to inform you that you can send us your question during the webinar using the dedicate icon, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can at the end. If we run out of time, we'll try to post the answer to Copenhagen Center Knowledge Management System. We'll let you know by email when the recording and the responses will be ready. Now, I would like to briefly introduce the speaker of today's webinar. Dr. Romanas Savickas is working as Senior Advisor at UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center. He has more than 25 years of professional intercontinental experience in the private, public, and academia sector, and he is developing and managing energy efficiency and climate adaptation mitigation projects by utilizing integrated energy system, district heating, district cooling, renewable, low carbon technologies, building energy efficiency, waste energy, digitalization, and hydrogen technology to cut and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And now, without further ado, I'll give to my colleague, Dr. Romanas Savickas. You have the floor.
Good day, everyone. Today we will talk about hydrogen and carbon capture, especially focusing on facilitating green hydrogen production and import-export potential. We will talk about hydrogen development history, hydrogen potential versus other fuels, hydrogen transportation issues, hydrogen costs, strategies, supply, demand, global hydrogen import-export potential, and we will facilitate discussion on green hydrogen production, export, import. You know that scientists have been interested in hydrogen since 1520s, when the first recorded observation of hydrogen was. And in 1839 was published the first principle of a fuel cells. In 1990s, the first flight was run on hydrogen. So hydrogen technologies are developing very, very rapidly. Timeline of future development of hydrogen technologies includes transportation, industry energy, building heating and power, industry feedstock, power generation. What is regarding transportation? For the next 5-10 years, it will develop very rapidly in city bus, vans, trucks, all kinds of transports as railway, and of course in shipping and planes. It will develop in industry, in building heating and power, industry feedstock, and in 5-10 years in power generation. Hydrogen is the most abundant element on the Earth. It is found naturally combined with other elements. Hydrogen is an energy carrier and fuel which can be used to store, transport, and to deliver energy produced from other sources. Hydrogen can be produced without a carbon footprint from a variety of sources as coal, natural gas, biomass, waste materials as plastics, or by just splitting water molecules. Hydrogen could account up to 12% of global energy use by 2050. Existing data shows that hydrogen will play an important part in energy transportation and that all sustainable hydrogen production technologies will play a role. Today is important to define the right priorities to kickstart a hydrogen ecosystem and start developing required hydrogen infrastructure. It is important to assess national potential to contribute to the development of a hydrogen ecosystem and to explore what are the opportunities for hydrogen export potential, as well as domestic applications. Primary utilization of hydrogen includes the following applications: as chemical in ammonia production, chemical feedstock and catalyst, hydrogenating agent for food and drug production, and of course in petrochemical and refinery processing. Hydrogen consumed by large volume consumers mostly is generated on-site, and for industries such as glass manufacture, food, and electronics, hydrogen is supplied by trailers. It is very interesting to see this graphic with historic data of various fuel types utilization phase versus hydrogen. At the beginning, we see wood and coal, and the wood utilization decreased when the coal utilization increased. So coal in some kind of manner replaced wood, and after coal utilization decreased, it was followed by oil utilization increase. After the natural gas came nuclear power, and we see that from 2000 the hydrogen, solar, renewable energy technologies, the utilization of these technologies now are progressing very well and rapidly. Hydrogen technology is capping up the maturity curve with solar and wind power. So we see solar and wind is a little bit in the front, and hydrogen is following the same way as solar and wind. In early 2000, solar and wind was not so much utilized and implemented, but today we see that it's boosting and progressing very well. So we predict that hydrogen will reach maturity curve in the same way as solar and wind. The cost of hydrogen production varies between regions, with Europe and Japan having relatively high cost and strong policy support for hydrogen. Hydrogen importers stand to benefit from cheaper, low-carbon energy, especially if their domestic renewable energy, nuclear or carbon capture resources are challenging or expensive to develop. According to the International Energy Agency, in the future, it might be cheaper in some instances for some countries to import hydrogen than to produce it domestically. Transportation of hydrogen is a challenge. Hydrogen has high energy density per unit mass, but a low volumetric energy density and ability to permit metal-based materials. Transportation requires high pressures, low temperatures, chemical processes to be stored compactly. Gaseous hydrogen is transported by either tube trailers or pipelines, and liquid hydrogen for shorter distances, small volumes, is transported by road tankers, or longer distances, larger volumes by ships. Hydrogen production from fossil fuels is the least expensive source of hydrogen. Steam reforming of natural gas for hydrogen production costs vary from 1.4 to 0.3 per kilogram. Hydrogen from gasification vary between 1.1 1.6 per kilogram for coal, and between 1.3 2 per kilogram for coal, biomass, waste plastic. Hydrogen production cost through electrolysis is estimated at 5-6 per 1 kilogram. Hydrogen from zero carbon electricity as nuclear, wind is 2-4 times more costly than hydrogen from carbon neutral or negative carbon fossil resources. In this picture, we see that hydrogen comes from natural gas with carbon capture, coal is much cheaper comparing with low carbon electricity production. But today we cannot talk about dirty fuel and hydrogen production from coal. We have to focus on green hydrogen production. In this picture, you can see hydrogen costs with a data of 2020. Hydrogen production from coal gasification varies from $1 to $2 per kilogram, and hydrogen from solar thermolysis or solar PV electrolysis is at much higher costs. Future hydrogen demand will increase, and forecasted data by Hydrogen Council, it shows that comparing to 2015, from 8 it will increase to 10, 14, to 28, and up to 72 in 2050. And from the existing feedstock users, the new feedstock will come, buildings, heat and power will come, industry energy will come, transportation will take very big part, and of course power generation buffer. Growth in renewable hydrogen is expected to accelerate decrease in capex for electrolyzers and planned investments in the hydrogen sector by 2030. Electrolyzers market by 2050 is expected to be at around 50-60 billions. Green hydrogen prices are expected to halve over the next 10 years. And from this picture you see that gray hydrogen, as for example hydrogen produced from coal, its costs may increase, and cost of green hydrogen rapidly decreasing, and it will become a very competitive source of energy up to 2050. If we will take a look on comparison of emissions, we can see that emissions per kilogram of CO2 per kilogram of produced hydrogen with hard coal, if you consider without carbon capture and storage, it's at about 20 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. From natural gas, emissions are at about 8-9 kilograms of CO2, and electricity from renewable or nuclear energy generation is absolutely at zero level. If we will consider world average electricity mix, then it will be at 25 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. So from this chart, we see that renewable energy can provide us green hydrogen with zero CO2 emissions. The main drivers of cost reduction for renewable hydrogen includes electricity costs, which today are up to 70%. The capex cost makes 15%, project financing cost makes about 9-10%, and operation maintenance cost makes about 5%. Two main issues remain an obstacle to its development: the manufacturing cost of electrolyzers and unclear regulatory framework, which is today still under development phase. A new Hydrogen Council report shows that over 30 countries with a national hydrogen strategy and budget, and more than 200 projects today in the pipeline. Governments worldwide committed more to 70 billion in public funding. Momentum exists along the entire value chain, and then as accelerating cost reductions for hydrogen production, transmission, distribution, retail, and end-to-end applications. Underpinned by a global shift of regulators, investors and consumers toward decarbonization, hydrogen is receiving unprecedented interest in investments. There are a global commitment to increase the electrolyzers' capacity to achieve targeted production goals. The total commitments announced are equal to an increase of electrolyzers capacity up to 48 gigawatts by 2030. So this is EU target. So we see the target from France, Denmark, Germany, Sweden, Italy, Spain, and all EU countries. And finally, up to 40 gigawatts. Europe today leads globally in the number of announced hydrogen projects, with Australia, Japan, Korea, China, and USA following as additional hubs. Where is the gap in Eastern Europe and Central Asia? European Union aims to increase the production of hydrogen by 10 million tons by 2030 and imports 10 million tons of hydrogen. This will lead to the creation of 80 gigawatts of electrolyzers capacity, which is double size of the original 50 gigawatt target. 17 gigawatt scale hydrogen production projects are planned, with the largest in Europe, including Netherlands, Australia, the Middle East, and Chile. Anticipating continued growth in scale, the data confirms that from a total cost of ownership perspective, hydrogen can become the most competitive low-carbon solution in more than 50 applications by 2030, including long-haul trucking, shipping, and steel. Wide proven experience is in hydrogen production. We have today alkaline electrolyzers since 1927, scalable design, and design for high volume manufacturing. The best case practices are in Herøya, Norway, and other countries, fully automated and designed according to lean manufacturing and industry principles. Industrial scale production of most efficient electrolyzers in the market, large-scale production line with nameplate capacity of more than 500 megawatts. The room is to expand about 2 gigawatts annually. CO2 reduction potential in line 1 gigawatt is 1 million tons, with 2 gigawatt is 4 to 5 million tons. Case drivers for large-scale commercialization and deployment. One standardized and universally applied certification system classifying the different types of hydrogen with common LAC methodology. Flexible and workable rules for sourcing of renewable electricity from the grid. The clear demand signals promoted via regulation. Targets for the use of renewable hydrogen in industry, transport segments. No double grid fees for renewable hydrogen production. Distances, targets for hydrogen refueling station, and contracts for difference. Carbon capture, usage, and storage also plays a very important role in green hydrogen production. Carbon storage potential can be seen in this global map, with orange country with highly prospective carbon storage potential. So countries with gray color, we have non-prospective, green with prospective, low to high, and orange with highly prospective. Carbon capture, storage, and usage readiness level can be assessed through technology readiness level, commercial readiness level, and social readiness level. And we see that technology readiness level for capture is quite well developed and progressing as commercial readiness level and social readiness level. Use storage also following the same technology readiness and commercial readiness levels. Hydrogen from nuclear power is one of power production opportunities. The most attractive is hydrogen production from renewable energy with zero potential of CO2, but producing energy, hydrogen from nuclear energy, we also may get zero CO2 emissions. So in some studies, nuclear power is considered complementary to renewable energy technologies. For countries that decided to deploy nuclear power, there are wide properties of nuclear power to produce hydrogen. Nuclear power can be used to produce hydrogen through electrolysis. Nuclear power could be used with steam electrolysis. This production pathway could be ready in 2030, since the commercial technologies are in development and is expected to improve efficiencies by 40%. Heat and electricity produced by nuclear power can also be used in steam methane reforming. This would significantly reduce carbon intensity compared to pathway from fossil fuels. The heat from nuclear power could be used to produce hydrogen through elevated temperature thermochemical reaction. This technology is still in research and development and is planned for 2040 perspective. Nuclear power produces flexible electricity to grid provided by electrolyzers coupling. Cost is highly dependent on financing arrangement. It represents 60% of nuclear power plant costs. A project in Saudi Arabia has been successful in achieving 99% conversion efficiency through solid oxide electrolysis. Safety and waste remain a challenge for scaled nuclear power deployment. UK example shows that policies are being put in place now to deliver nuclear-enabled hydrogen in the 2030s. Long-term thinking drives positive investment that delivers secure, low-cost, low-carbon energy. Including nuclear in energy system strategies can unlock carbon neutrality in new ways. International markets could enable cross-border trade of nuclear-enabled hydrogen, potentially providing nuclear-enabled hydrogen options for countries not seeking domestic nuclear deployment. Another opportunity to produce hydrogen is hydrogen from natural gas. Steam methane reforming from natural gas is currently the most commercially developed technology for large-scale hydrogen production, but it requires carbon capture to become zero carbon. Oxygen can be used as input instead of air for combustion through autothermal methane reforming, which leads to more than concentrated CO2 emissions and easier to more efficient deployment. Scaling hydrogen from natural gas with carbon capture and storage will require long-term storage of captured CO2. 20% of the 40 million tons of CO2 captured today is sent to long-term storage. The rest is used for enhanced oil recovery. One carbon capture and storage pathway is the production of solid carbon through elevated temperatures, but it doesn't imply long-term storage issues. The production of 5 million tons of hydrogen led to 60 million tons of solid carbon. Pyrolysis is a promising technology, but there are issues with technological readiness, scaling, cost, and carbon utilization. The process requires high temperatures, more than 800 degrees. The optimal level for non-catalytic processes more than 1000 degrees. Hydrogen from natural gas can be low carbon under certain conditions and its certification. And life cycle analysis implies that electrolysis should only be used if powered by low carbon energy sources. Otherwise, it produces more CO2 emissions than steam methane reforming with carbon capture. There is a consensus on the fact that renewable hydrogen will start to be competitive as carbon capture and storage hydrogen cost rise in 10 to 40 years. hydrogen from coal also can be produced, and coal currently accounts for 27% of the hydrogen demand. The potential for future is that hydrogen production from coal would decrease and green hydrogen production will increase. According to International Energy Agency, the demand for hydrogen, including hydrogen from coal, will follow the exponential curve by 2050. So there are different predictions in the development of hydrogen production. Hydrogen can be produced through a coal gasification. The coal is heated at high temperatures with oxygen to produce syngas, which is then upgraded through a water gas shift reaction which allows to separate CO2 from hydrogen. The costs vary due to local factors: fuel price, renewable energy, load factor, learning rates, and carbon taxes. Hydrogen from coal gasification with carbon capture as low as 1.6 per 1 kilogram to 2.4 per 1 kilogram. Carbon intensity of hydrogen from coal with carbon capture can be limited to 3 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. Examples from Asia Pacific shows that there is no prejudice of hydrogen type and all low-carbon hydrogen technologies are encouraged. Examples from North Africa illustrate high technology readiness facilitate market creation in specific sectors. For example, transport and industry. Near-term actions are required to overcome barriers and reduce costs. Role of hydrogen valleys and industrial clusters to establish longer-term signals to promote investor confidence and stimulate commercial demand. In this picture, you can see potential hydrogen trade import-export routes for 2020. This data was forecasted from the last year, and we can see that exporter routes and importer routes and countries. UAE capable of exporting renewable hydrogen to Europe in the future. EU official pointed out that hydrogen is an energy carrier which can help decarbonize sectors where it is not easy to do. Abu Dhabi, with its abundant solar power, has the potential to become an exporter of renewable hydrogen to Europe in the future. In addition to scaling up renewable hydrogen in EU, it is important to create a global hydrogen market that would facilitate production and trade. For this, we need other pioneers across the globe who prioritize renewable hydrogen, and UAE, with abundant solar power, is interested in hydrogen has much potential in this field. Countries as Kazakhstan also have to be assessed with potential for hydrogen import or export. In Kazakhstan, all types of hydrogen will play a role thanks to its infrastructure and abundant natural resources. Kazakhstan is committed to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. Its roadmap transportation towards the green economy by 2050. It also includes the development and the deployment of a hydrogen development strategy. The government aims to increase share of renewables from 3% in 2020 to 40% in 2030 and 50% in 2015. Short-term pilot projects focusing on mobility with the deployment of hydrogen-powered vehicles and hydrogen fuel stations. Mid to long-term, enhancing domestic hydrogen applications in heating and industry. These projects need a different policies framework than the one in the European Union due to different technology levels and needs, as well as level of institutional capacity. Taking a look on another country as Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan is at the stage of reforming its energy sector. The country has vast potential in solar and wind resources, gas, coal, and nuclear. As major global uranium exporter, Uzbekistan started developing a nuclear power plant. Natural gas is widely deployed in Uzbekistan. 50% of transportation in Uzbekistan is already using a natural gas station. This provides a solid base to launch hydrogen application in transport sector. Uzbekistan could become a hydrogen exporting country through the use of its already existing natural gas infrastructure. Tajikistan, mountainous country with a vast hydro potential, which currently accounts for about 98% of country's electricity generation. Still, the power supply is vulnerable to supply shocks and seasonal shortages that provide strong drivers for the development and deployment of alternatives. The government is currently trying to exploit domestic coal reserves to diversify the national energy mix and is also recognizing the potential of hydrogen. Development of hydrogen in Tajikistan could be impacted by electricity cost variation. There is a need for more resilient energy system and energy connectivity. An integrated energy system could be enabled. Countries as Turkmenistan. In May 2021, the government published the presidential strategy for low-carbon energy and hydrogen on a global scale, an export-oriented strategy. The first step towards the strategy is developing international cooperation and innovative technologies, in which hydrogen was identified as one of the key priorities. Turkmenistan started drafting of national roadmap for the development of international cooperation in the field of hydrogen. Armenia is currently vastly dependent on imports of fossil fuels, but the country has a vast hydropower and solar potential. The basis of a scaling up renewable energy program for Armenia. Armenia reaffirms its interest in hydrogen as a solution to decarbonize its energy system, as the government is currently developing the solar power infrastructure. Need for clear policy framework to allow full development of a renewable energy and hydrogen potential. Azerbaijan has played a historical important role as an oil producer. Most of its hydrocarbon production comes from offshore fields in the Caspian Sea. The country's largest hydrocarbon basins are located offshore in the Caspian Sea. In October 2021, Energy Ministry presented a green legislative package which includes the use of wind energy potential of Caspian Sea. The significant potential of offshore wind energy can enable hydrogen production in Azerbaijan. However, the country yet has to develop its national hydrogen strategy. Azerbaijan can benefit from its large pipeline infrastructure to export hydrogen via the transatlantic pipeline. Countries as Mongolia also developing hydrogen-related project. The first Mongolian-based green hydrogen project in Gobi Hydrogen is moving forward. Mongolia Green Finance Corporation is going to support the financing for the Elixir Energy. This organization was established to facilitate the financing of Mongolian projects that will assist the global energy transition to net zero carbon future. A detailed analysis of the legal issues surrounding a potential green hydrogen project in Mongolia states that no new major legislation is needed for the deployment of green hydrogen projects in the Mongolia country. As the next steps, there should be identified Mongolia carbon offset opportunities at the household level. The aim is to reduce its current exploration appraisal stage Scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions by such means. To develop a large-scale forestry nature-related offsets in Mongolia, these were increased so by international oil and gas companies to offset emissions in the production stage of operations, and work with international financial institutions over the project financing of proposed green hydrogen pilot production plant. Over than water, the OVK input for a green hydrogen project is a high-quality renewable power source, which desktop analysis indicates are of globally very high quality in the Mongolian Gobi region. Now I will go to the conclusions, and in conclusions I would like to state that hydrogen could account up to 20% of global energy use by 2050. The existing data shows that hydrogen will play an important role and part in energy transition, and that all sustainable hydrogen production technologies will play a role. Most countries in their hydrogen strategies give priority to green hydrogen. Today it is important to define the right priorities, kickstart a green hydrogen ecosystem, and start developing a required hydrogen infrastructure. It is important to assess global potential to contribute to development of a hydrogen ecosystem and to explore what are opportunities for hydrogen import-export potential as well as domestic applications. So today the demand for hydrogen increases. Hydrogen can be produced from different fuels as coal, gas, or renewable energy. But in the future and today, we have mainly to focus on the green hydrogen production and green hydrogen ecosystem creation and facilitation. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your thorough presentation, Dr. Romanas. Now it's time for the Q&A session, and the first question that we received is, do you know any potential new ideas for hydrogen implementation?
Thank you very much for this question, for these interesting questions. Yes, I can give you a few examples and a few practical cases. For example, at this moment is considered to create a ship which will contain plastic collection equipment. So plastic will be collected from the ocean, and after this plastic collected from the ocean will be processed at the ship level, and it will produce hydrogen, and the ship will be operated by the same hydrogen. So the plastic collected from the ocean will be produced to fuel, which will run the same ship. The remaining hydrogen or hydrogen surplus produced at the sea ship level will be transported from the sea to the land. So by the help of this integrated approach and synergy, we can solve different environmental issues like plastic pollution in oceans, which is a very big issue and problem today, and also solving fuel issues and providing clean fuel for ships fueling. Also, you know that last year, first time was produced first carbon neutral steel. This steel was produced for car manufacturing company. So having this pilot project and pilot cases, it shows that hydrogen technology is developing very rapidly and reaching good maturity and commercialization level.
Thank you for the response. The next question that we have is, what is the impact of current gas and oil prices on hydrogen production?
As you know, the current situation in the oil market, you can see that gas prices, oil prices increasing rapidly. And in the future, potential is also that these prices will not come back at the same level like a couple of years ago. And what is regarding green hydrogen production, which is produced from sources like renewable energy, solar or wind. So these costs almost remain the same, and the production of hydrogen from fuel as gas increases. So that means competitiveness of green hydrogen production in long-term perspective increases, and by the help of develop new technologies, hydrolyzers, high-scale production, the investment for hydrogen production capex costs will decrease. The required energy costs also has potential to decrease, and attractiveness of green hydrogen in the future will increase and will be green hydrogen even more competitive what comparing to what we have today.
Thank you for the response. Now the next question involves Europe, and the question is, will Europe be a hydrogen importer or exporter in the future? So what is your response?
Today we see that countries, especially in Europe, they developing hydrogen strategies, and we focus a lot on hydrogen potential, hydrogen utilization opportunities, and how much hydrogen they will require in the future, how much hydrogen they can produce, and how much hydrogen they need to import. From the existing demand and future forecast, we can see that the demand for hydrogen in future in Europe, then countries will increase, and then there will come opportunity for our countries to produce green hydrogen. For example, if we will discuss about MENA region, Middle East, North Africa, Africa region, we have very high renewable energy resources as solar, so hydrogen can be produced through these renewable energy resources. Green hydrogen can be produced, and they can become an exporting countries. And Europe, it will produce hydrogen up to a certain level, but of course also will be interested to import part of hydrogen, especially green hydrogen, from other countries.
Thank you, Dr. Romanas, for your response to the previous question. We are approaching close to the end of the webinar, but I think we have a little bit more time to respond for the final question. And the question is, what about energy efficiency and hydrogen?
Today we talk about energy efficiency, and also we see that it's very important not only energy efficiency, but what kind of fuel is used in this energy efficiency processes. In the future, I see that we have to focus not only on energy efficiency, but to focus on green energy efficiency. That means in a couple of years or decades, we have to replace dirty fuel as coal by another type of fuel, and in this place hydrogen, especially green hydrogen, comes and plays very important role as clean fuel, green fuel, especially renewable energy based produced hydrogen with zero CO2 emissions. So it can replace dirty coal, and the future energy efficiency can be described as green energy efficiency with a certain dedicated share of clean green hydrogen.
Thank you for the detailed responses to the questions. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, we come to the end of the webinar. I would like to say thanks to my colleague for the informative and interesting presentation, and to the audience for their active participation. We hope that the presentation will be beneficial for all stakeholders involved in energy efficiency and hydrogen. We're preparing more webinars on hydrogen, so please keep track of our website, follow UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center on social media, or register for our newsletter. Thank you for your attention and wish you a good day or night from Copenhagen.